September 2005, Nigeria negotiated a successful Paris Club debt deal. What this meant for us was that we gained $1 billion in savings that would otherwise have been spent on paying a debt. This was allocated to both the federal level and the states. And at the federal level, 75% accrued to us and 25% to the states. This expose is about what we've done with that $750 million at the federal level. And we've done this through a virtual poverty fund called OPEN, and it's directed at spending on the MDGs. This fund was set up by Mr. President.
Nigerians follow me to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes shall never be.
Since the 1980s, Nigeria has lived under a growing and debilitating debt burden. By the end of 2005, the country was indebted to the tune of over $34 billion. Servicing these debts has cost Nigerian taxpayers an average of $2 billion annually. This huge debt burden has severely limited the ability of the government to cater for its citizens, especially the poor. In October 2005, the Paris Club of Creditor Countries agreed to cancel $18 billion or 3.96 trillion naira out of Nigeria's indebtedness of some $30 billion to the club.
So I was convinced. I believe it's achievable, and I set out to achieve it. In my first term, I talked to all the political leaders in the world that I needed to talk to about debt relief. On one occasion, I was in London. I was on telephone to a particular president for 1 hour. At the end, my minister said, "You've only made very little impression, not so much." I went again, and I paid a visit to that president. At the end, we made more than just a little impression. We made a big impression.
So after the initial rounds, when the President Obasanjo was going around and asking various heads of state for support, he realized that it was more strategic to identify our major creditor, the UK government. And one of the most important things we did was to enlist the support of the legislators. We had some limitations going to talk with our creditors. Basically, we are representing government, and they don't know that we are duly elected. We are not duly elected representatives, and so there are some things we can't tell them. But once we got the legislators involved under the leadership of Senator Udoma and Honorable Farouk Lawan, they were able to go and talk to their colleagues and tell them things that we couldn't, and also show the true face, the face of elected. I mean, this is basically, they are representing the people, and they are reflecting the feelings of ordinary Nigerians about Nigeria's indebtedness.
While this was going on, the Senate President organized a roundtable on debt relief, at which we invited people from all over the world, principally our creditors, to find out exactly what was going on, how much did we owe, and to make it clear to them that the Nigerian people would no longer tolerate a continuation of this debt burden, and that a satisfactory resolution had to be found for the debt issue.
We had cases where debts were incurred for a particular project, and if you go to that project today, you won't even find the site where that project is supposed to have been cited. Now, that is a very serious issue.
A decade ago, few would have believed that Nigeria's debt stock could be reduced to 10% of our GDP, following rigorous technical negotiations and tremendous level of diplomatic initiative geared towards gathering the support of the international community.
My dear fellow Nigerians, it is with great joy that I address you today on one of the pillars of success of this administration. It is the debt relief already announced.
As part of the agreement, the Nigerian government pledged to commit the savings, also called Debt Relief Gains (DRG), to financing pro-poor programs that will assist the country achieve the Millennium Development Goals (MDGs). The savings equates to 100 billion naira or $757 million annually, and will be an additional spending on projects in priority sectors such as health, education, power supply, water resources, housing, and agriculture. In fulfillment of this commitment, the Nigerian government has begun to allocate an annual sum of $750 million of the savings into MDGs allocations to key MDG-related federal ministries, starting from the 2006 national budget. The funds are channeled through a virtual poverty fund entitled Overview of Public Expenditure in Needs, OPEN. All of the funds channeled through the OPEN initiative were to be used in programs and projects that help Nigeria achieve the Millennium Development Goals.
We have a special office that has been created by His Excellency the President Olusegun Obasanjo, under Mrs. Amina Ibrahim. She is his senior special assistant on MDGs. So all she does is making sure that MDG related spendings are on and on track, and also she works on ensuring that debt relief savings are efficiently spent on pro-poor projects. So there is the virtual poverty fund that has been set up just to track these expenditures, and we have named our own virtual poverty fund. We've named it the OPEN, the Overview of Public Expenditure in Needs. That is the acronym OPEN. So these basically are the instruments she uses in tracking and ensuring that the spendings are on track.
Following the Millennium Declaration adopted by member states of the United Nations at the Millennium Summit of 2000, Nigeria committed itself to the realization of the Millennium Development Goals (MDGs) by 2015 through the reform program based on the National Economic Empowerment Strategy needs. The MDGs are a set of 8 goals and 18 targets that all countries of the world have committed to achieve by the year 2015. They reflect a multidimensional understanding of poverty as deprivation, which is measured not only by income but also by various indicators of health, education, gender equality, and environmental sustainability. Poor countries have pledged to govern better and invest in their people through healthcare and education. Rich countries have pledged to support poor countries through aid, debt relief, and fair trade. The allocation of debt relief funds in the 2006 budget provided additional spending for the achievement of the MDGs. What was the rationale for distribution of the virtual poverty fund?
We had to look at strategically spending this money that would make impact. If we had spread it as sharing the cake with 36 states and the FCT, Nigerians wouldn't have felt this at all. We would have spent it well, but we wouldn't have felt it, we wouldn't have achieved the targets that we set in the MDGs. So we looked to see where the indices were worse, where we had poverty, high rates of maternal and child mortality, and focused the resources on that.
The 10 ministries and their respective allocations chosen to benefit from the fund in 2006 were Health, 21,288 million naira; Education, 18,221,707,736 naira; Water Resources, 19,015,599,154 naira; Power and Steel, 16,961,839,096 naira; Works, 9,855,000,000 naira; Agriculture, 9,400,000,000 naira; Environment, 1,485,000,000 naira; Women Affairs, 1 billion naira; Youth, 990 million naira; Housing, 495 million naira; Monitoring and Evaluation, 1 billion naira, bringing the total distributed fund to 99,712,145,987 naira. The expenditure of debt relief funds in Budget 2006 was coordinated by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MDGs, Hajia Amina Ibrahim.
The targeting of the spend using the MDGs has better focused us. It's also been an additional spend, which means we've been able to scale up on education, health, agriculture, the roads. We made tremendous progress with immunization. That was in quite a bad state of affairs, but with the President's restructuring of the agency and the debt relief funds, we were able to raise the coverage from 30% over 70%. So examples like this of that kind of a success with the debt relief, but particularly that we've been able to target it more effectively.
In addition to the core mandate of ensuring the debt relief gains were properly utilized, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on the MDGs has used this opportunity to improve public expenditure management by introducing monitoring and evaluation result-based framework and a bold initiative that puts civil society with the private sector in the field to give independent feedback in projects at state and local government levels.
Many projects are initiated, implemented without a systematized way of knowing whether the project has achieved its objectives or not. So I think that the process that the MDG office has put in place that ensures monitoring, I think was a novel approach.
The Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MDGs has also embarked on a comprehensive cost exercise of the MDGs. This will enable better input into planning for the medium-term sector strategy and establishing a credible funding gap for international support.
The way that they have approached the setting up of the system is working with the actual agencies that are responsible for use of funds, and I think this is the first step towards ensuring the sustainability. The capacity is being built and there should be continued focus on using and working through those ministries that are planning for the use of the resources and monitoring their use.
And there are examples where the debt relief gains have meant a school or a clinic or an extra teacher there at grassroots. There's no question it's at grassroots. But let's not forget that $1 billion is a very small percentage of the entire requirements that Nigeria has. Nigeria, with a population of 140 million, is an enormous country. The challenges that Nigeria are faced with in trying to get maternal mortality, which is some of the highest figures in sub-Saharan Africa outside of conflict, immunization figures up, the number of children out of school back into school, the quality of education, all these factors, they're enormous challenges. $1 billion a year seems a lot in the outset, but in the context of Nigeria is actually very small.
The current administration has made tremendous progress in the achievement of the MDGs as it affects the implementation of the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy needs. It has recorded substantial progress in entrenching due process in government expenditure in a bid to derive maximum value for money while ensuring greater transparency and accountability. Efforts are underway to ensure fiscal prudence in government finances with the Fiscal Responsibility Bill before the National Assembly.
Our expectation in the next 4 years is that we will have an average GDP growth rate of 10% between 2008 and 2011. If we are able to have this and agriculture playing a major role in growth development, then it shows that we are on track in being able to achieve the Millennium Development Goals.
Together, the President, Hajia Amina's office and the Budget Office identified those ministries that were most able to assist Nigeria in our achievement of the MDGs. For example, the Ministry of Health received over a fifth of the entire debt relief envelope because it is directly related to the achievement of 3 of the goals and indirectly related to all the others. Health is one of Nigeria's biggest development challenges, with rates of maternal and child mortality among the worst in the world. There was also sufficient evidence that the ministry could absorb and spend funds appropriately. In some cases where inadequate information were provided for a specific project, budget tracking and monitoring have proved effective in enabling funds to be transferred to other projects with detailed, specific assignment.
We've gone beyond just the tagging and tracking. We have 2 platforms that I think have been very successful. Instituting the monitoring and evaluation mechanism, both that of the field where we send out the partnership of civil society and the private sector to look at value for money and impact on the ground. That has been extremely successful. It's independent. The feedback in itself is very constructive. The other side of it is that the Presidential Committee, which has a broad-based representation from chaired by the President, but the ministers are there, civil society is there, the governors are there, the National Assembly are there, private sector is there. And that report to them on a quarterly basis enables us to get feedback from different constituencies on what has happened in these sectors. And that's been instrumental in us being able to better engage with the governors and engage with the National Assembly on new initiatives such as the conditional grants and better coordination between the tiers of government.
In view of these considerations, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on the MDGs worked with each of the 10 ministries and the National Assembly to refine a series of line items compiled in the final project list that would best achieve the MDGs. Health. In the health sector, 1,280 million naira was spent on the Rollback Malaria Initiative. 4,750 million naira procured antiretroviral drugs and test kits for HIV/AIDS initiative. A total of 9,500 million naira was spent to deliver the National Primary Healthcare Program. 5,500 million naira was the cost for procuring vaccines for routine immunization and equipment for the National Program on Immunization. The total cost of these line items was 21,288 million naira. Education. 100 million naira scaled up HIV/AIDS program in education. 500 million naira scaled up nomadic education programs with a focus on healthcare. 4 billion naira was spent on infrastructural development of the National Teachers Institute. 6 billion naira went towards establishing the Teachers Corps. In summary, all this expenditure totaled 18,220 million naira.
I feel very, very happy. Even without being told, you can see that I'm smiling. All of us are happy, more than happy for getting this job.
Water resources. In the water resources sector, 9,795 million naira was spent in the construction of boreholes, small earth dams and irrigation projects for rural water supply in 12 river basin development areas across the country. In addition to this, 9,425 million naira was to provide irrigation, dams and boreholes for the National Water Supply Scheme. These projects amounted to 19,220 million naira as allocated from the Virtual Poverty Fund. Power and steel. In the power and steel sector, the entire budget of 16,960 million naira was spent on rural electrification ongoing projects. The budget also included planning and coordination. Agriculture. In the agricultural sector, between 500 to 750 million naira was disbursed each for the provision of improved on-farm storage structures, runoff water harvesting technology, livestock and pest control, fisheries and aquaculture, the Chinese South-South cooperation and provision of small earth dams, animal traction programs, and the disbursement of agricultural credit and microfinancing scheme, with the exception of integrated rural roads construction and rehabilitation of rural feeder roads, which spent up 5 billion naira. Works. In the works sector, emphasis was placed on the construction and rehabilitation of federal highways relating to agri-produce areas. A total of 11 line projects were executed with a minimum cost range between 300 million naira to 1,650 million naira each. The total cost of these projects, including monitoring and evaluation by the sector ministry, was set to 9,860 million naira. Environment. In the environment sector, erosion control projects in 4 states, afforestation programs of forestry development, rehabilitation and management of 10 oases in desertification frontline states of Yobe and Borno, waste management and sanitation programs gulped the total budget of 1,485 million naira. Women affairs. In the women affairs and child development sector, the appropriation of 1 billion naira promoted increased participation in women politics, facilitated advocacy in the Convention of the Rights of Children, developed the framework for the sustenance of gender equality, supported the domestication and popularization of instruments to aid women and children, addressed the problems affecting the rights and welfare of the Nigerian child treated in a number of line ministries and agencies, including Women Affairs, Employment, Labor and Productivity, Health and Education. These and other initiatives were practical gains from debt relief. Youth. In the youth sector, the total appropriation of 990 million naira was spent in the Youth in Farming Training Program, HIV/AIDS counseling and testing centers, agricultural entrepreneurship program development, and training in citizen and leadership skills for youth. Housing and urban development. In the housing and urban development sector's slum dwellers program at Mufere community in Ondo State, 495 million naira was spent on reconstruction of tertiary roads, drains and public health center, construction of public toilet, crèche for market women, open stalls, lock-up shops and incinerator, improvement to water supply, purchase of firefighting equipment and refuse disposal trucks, and HIV/AIDS awareness campaign. With transparent use of Nigeria's debt relief gains in 2006, the story of debt relief is an opportunity to showcase the country's continuing reform agenda and her ability to spend funds honestly and competently. It has also highlighted the challenges that abound in our bid to reform Nigeria and deliver the dividends of democracy to its people.
I think the one thing that the debt relief did was that the argument we made of the burden of debt and the possibilities that could be for us to come out of poverty had that debt relief been given to us. I think we've proved that we've been able to spend money transparently and get results out of it. That the commitment and the intentions are well meant and they're well targeted, and they will feel the benefits of this debt relief. Year on year as we go forward, it will get better. We will need to communicate it much better, but I would say to them that what we set out to do, they will see and benefit from the dividends of debt relief.
I believe that we have touched every aspect of life in this country: economic, social, political, educational, whichever way you look at it. We have touched every aspect. Of course, starting is normally a problem, but starting when you have made that, you must also have continuity. You can say we have started well. I expect that those to whom we will give the baton will continue in like manner.